On January 1959, 9 experienced hikers set out into the frozen Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union. They were young, skilled, and well prepared for the harsh winter conditions. But none of them would return alive. Weeks later, search teams discovered their abandoned tent, ripped open from the inside. Their footprints led into the freezing wilderness, where their bodies were found scattered across the mountain over the following months. More than 65 years later, one question still remains. What really happened at Dyatlov Pass? The story begins with Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student and experienced mountaineer. He organized an expedition through one of the most remote mountain ranges in the Soviet Union. The group consisted of 10 experienced hikers, each trained for difficult winter expeditions. Their goal was to earn one of the highest hiking certifications available in the Soviet Union. They carefully planned their route, packed supplies, and began their journey in late January of 1959. But only 9 continued. One member of the expedition, Yuri Yudin, became sick early in the trip and decided to turn back. At the time, he believed he had simply caught an illness. He had no way of knowing that his decision would save his life. 27th, 1959. The group officially began their ski expedition into the northern Ural Mountains. Their destination was Mount Otorten, one of the most remote areas in the region. The journey would cover more than 190 miles through deep snow, freezing temperatures, and unforgiving terrain. By every measure, this was a difficult expedition. But it wasn't unusual for this group. They were experienced hikers who had completed challenging winter expeditions before. They carried the proper equipment, carefully planned their route, and knew how to survive in extreme conditions. For the next several days, everything appeared to be going according to plan. The group traveled deeper into the wilderness, documenting their journey with photographs and diary entries. They laughed together, stopped to take pictures, and even joked with one another despite the freezing weather. Looking back at those photographs today, nothing appears out of the ordinary. No signs of panic, no indication that anything was wrong. But on February 1st, the expedition took an unexpected turn. Instead of reaching a more sheltered, forested area before nightfall, the group set up camp on the exposed eastern slope of a mountain known as Kholat Syakhl. Translated from the local Mansi language, the name means dead mountain. Historians believe the name likely referred to the mountain's lack of wildlife rather than any supernatural meaning. But it has certainly added to the mystery over the decades. The hikers pitched their tent directly on the snowy slope, prepared dinner, and settled in for the night. According to everything investigators have been able to determine, this was the last evening the group spent together. Sometime during the night, something happened. And whatever it was, caused 9 experienced hikers to abandon the safety of their tent and disappear into one of the coldest environments on Earth. When the group failed to return on the expected date, family members and friends began to worry. At first, no one thought much of the delay. Experienced hikers could easily fall behind schedule because of bad weather or difficult terrain. But as the days passed, with no word from the expedition, search teams were finally organized. On February 26th, rescuers reached the campsite. What they found immediately raised more questions than answers. The tent was still standing, but something was terribly wrong. One side of the tent had been cut open from the inside. Inside, investigators found warm clothing, boots, food, cameras, and personal belongings. It looked as if the group had left in an incredible hurry. Outside the tent, searchers discovered a trail of footprints leading downhill into the forest. Some of the prints appeared to have been made by people wearing only socks. Others seemed to have been barefoot. Whatever caused the group to leave, they had done so without properly dressing for temperatures that dropped well below freezing. Nearly a mile away, beneath a large cedar tree, searchers made another disturbing discovery. The first two bodies were found lying near the remains of a small campfire. Broken branches high in the tree suggested that at least one person had climbed it, possibly searching for the others or trying to spot the tent in the darkness. Over the following weeks and months, the remaining hikers were found scattered across the mountain. Some appeared to have been trying to make their way back toward the tent. Others were discovered much later, beneath deep snow in a nearby ravine. While several had died from hypothermia, others had suffered severe internal injuries that investigators compared to the force of a serious car crash. Yet many showed little external trauma. The discovery only deepened the mystery. Why had 9 experienced hikers abandoned the safety of their tent in the middle of a freezing winter night? And what had happened after they left? As investigators began examining the scene, each new discovery seemed to raise even more questions. The first, and perhaps most puzzling piece of evidence, was the tent itself. Investigators determined that the fabric had been cut from the inside, suggesting the hikers had deliberately created an escape route instead of using the entrance. But why? There were no obvious signs of a struggle inside the tent, and many of their most important belongings, including warm clothing, boots, food, and supplies, had been left behind. In temperatures that likely dropped below -20 degrees Celsius, leaving without proper clothing would have been incredibly dangerous. Searchers then followed the trail of footprints leading away from the campsite. The prints suggested the group had walked downhill rather than run in complete panic. Some hikers appeared to be barefoot. Others wore only socks or a single boot. The tracks eventually disappeared beneath snow, making it impossible to know exactly where everyone went after that. Medical examinations added another layer to the mystery. Several hikers were determined to have died from hypothermia, but others had suffered severe internal injuries, including crushed ribs and major skull fractures. According to investigators, some of these injuries would have required an enormous amount of force, similar to the impact of a high-speed vehicle collision. Yet many of the victims showed surprisingly little external damage. Some of the clothing recovered from the hikers was also found to contain elevated levels of radioactivity. While this detail has fueled decades of speculation, investigators have never reached a definitive conclusion about its significance, and several possible explanations have been suggested over the years. Another detail that often attracts attention is that some victims were missing soft tissue from areas of the face. However, many forensic experts believe these injuries were consistent with natural decomposition and scavenging after the bodies remained exposed to the harsh environment for months. After months of investigation, Soviet authorities ultimately concluded that the hikers had died as the result of what they described as a compelling natural force. But they never clearly explained what that force actually was. Decades later, the unanswered questions continue to fuel one of history's most famous mysteries. For more than 6 decades, countless investigators, scientists, and amateur researchers have tried to answer one question. What caused the hikers to leave their tents that night? While dozens of theories have been proposed, a few stand out more than the rest. One of the most widely discussed explanations is a type of slab avalanche. Unlike the massive avalanches often seen in movies, a slab avalanche can involve a smaller section of compacted snow breaking loose and sliding downhill. Some researchers believe this could have placed enormous pressure on the tent, forcing the hikers to escape immediately by cutting through the fabric instead of using the entrance. It could also explain why they left many of their belongings behind and why some of the victims suffered severe chest and skull injuries. However, critics point out that search teams didn't report the kind of large avalanche debris many people would expect to find. Others argue that the slope itself wasn't ideal for a classic avalanche. Even today, experts continue to debate whether this explanation accounts for every piece of evidence. Another possibility is that a combination of natural factors led to the tragedy. Powerful mountain winds, freezing temperatures, poor visibility, and difficult terrain may have created an emergency that forced the group out of the tent. Once outside, the hikers may have become separated in the darkness while attempting to survive and eventually return to camp. This theory aligns with the fact that several victims died from hypothermia and that footprints suggested the group walked away rather than sprinted in panic. But like the avalanche theory, it still leaves some questions unanswered, particularly the unusual internal injuries suffered by several hikers. Over the years, many other explanations have been proposed. Some believe the hikers may have encountered secret Soviet military testing, pointing to reports of glowing lights in the sky and traces of radioactivity found on some clothing. Others have suggested infrasound, arguing that unusual wind conditions could have caused panic or disorientation. And of course, there are more extraordinary claims involving UFOs, paranormal forces, or unknown creatures. While these ideas continue to attract attention online, none have been supported by conclusive evidence. Most researchers agree that, despite decades of investigation, no single theory fully explains every detail of the incident. More than 65 years have passed since the Dyatlov Pass Incident, yet it remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. Advances in science have helped explain some aspects of the case, but others remain open to debate. Whether the answer lies in an unusual natural event, a tragic chain of decisions, or something investigators have yet to uncover, the story continues to fascinate people around the world. The final moments of those 9 hikers may never be fully known. But one thing is certain: the mystery of Dyatlov Pass is far from forgotten. What do you think happened that night? Let me know your theory in the comments below.